In this tutorial, we're going to start the drawing, set up the title block, and complete the general assembly drawing. From where we finished in tutorial 6, we need to go up to our workspace selection and go to Drawing from Design. And you'll see this come up. Now, it might be a little bit different on mine, but we basically want to select Manual, Create New, ISO, millimeters, and change A4 to A3. And then OK. After some time, this page will come up, and when you move your mouse around for the first time, you'll see this view come up. Now, the base view is generally the front view, and according to AS 1100, the front view must be logically the front of whatever the object is, but also the view that has the most detail. Now, in this case, the way that we have designed this is that both of these are the same. The front view is probably the view that has the most detail on it. Now, you'll see over here the scale is 1 to 10. We can change it to 1 to 5, which actually works a lot better for this particular drawing. And you could see from that menu there that there were other scales. Now, AS 1100 requires that the base view or the front view is placed down in towards the bottom and over on the left hand side of the drawing. So I'm just going to place it here and click. Then I can click away from it. Then OK. So there's our base view. Now, before I get too carried away, we've got down here this title block that I'm not a fan of because for two reasons. Firstly, it takes up too much space on the page. And secondly, it doesn't have space for things that need to be there, such as the projection symbol. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hover over it until you can see these lines appear. Right click, and then we've got New Title Block. You'll see up here, you can source it from somewhere, you can bring it in, you can design it elsewhere and import it as a DWG, but we're going to go from scratch and we'll just call it Title Block. So we're going to use some simple drawing tools to draw up our title block. And a lot of this I'm just going to either cut out or speed through because once you get the hang of the basics, it's fairly simple. Having said that, this is an area of Fusion where it can be really glitchy. So sometimes you just have to be a bit patient. Now, the first thing I want to do is, because I'm going to be working mostly down here, I want to change my zoom, and there's a slightly different zoom feature here. So I've got this zoom window feature. So if I select that, left click up here, and then left click again down here, you can see it kind of zooms in on this area here. L for line is the keyboard shortcut. And I want to draw a line going all the way across around about 10 millimeters above the bottom margin. So I think that's like a 4 millimeter grid at the moment. So if I just start here, and again, it doesn't really snap that well. So it's, yeah, like I said, it's a bit glitchy, this one. So I'll come all the way across here, and I wanted to just make sure that that angle there stays at 0 and everything's nice and parallel. Now I need a vertical line, and I just basically need to divide this up a bit. So I'm just going to show you some features. So I'm going to do a vertical line here. Again, I've just got to make sure that that angle there says 90. And also that it is visually vertical. Now, if it's not, I can just press escape because I think that is out slightly, and I can actually edit it. Although sometimes, and like I said before, it can be a little bit glitchy. So sometimes it's just better off just delete, L for line, try again until it's right. That's pretty good. So let's just say that I want to put in the title there and that line is not in the right place. I can now just pretty much just drag it along. I just have to be careful that I don't muck other things up. There we go. Now for text, there's our text tool. And again, I can just make sure my text is in here. You'll see up here, I found that the settings that work well are Arial, 3.5mm, black, and then I can change these settings as required. So in this case, just make sure my caps lock button is pressed. And then once I've done that, then I can move it around so that I've got it sort of centered in that space. Now you can see there that I don't need this line to be that far away, so I can actually now drag that across and have that where I need it to be. The next one I'll need to have a fair bit of space because even though on this drawing it's called General Assembly, there are other drawing names that have, you know, longer titles to them, so I can change that later on. The final thing that I'm going to show you over here before I sort of race ahead and finish off the title block is just how to bring in the third angle projection symbol. So I'll go alpha line again and just have a vertical line over here. So this space here is going to be for my drawing numbers, and this space here is going to be for my projection symbol. So up here we can go insert and insert from my computer. And what I've done is I've just gone out onto the internet and downloaded a third angle projection symbol and then just saved it somewhere where I know that it is. So I can now grab that, go open. This is quite clunky, to be honest. So I'm just going to place it so it's in the bottom corner there. You can see it's now too big. We have to do all this manually. So I've found that for the dimensions that I'm working with, a scale of about 0.4 works. And then I've just got to adjust X and Y distance to get it centered in that box there. There we go. Now I'm just going to go ahead and complete this. So I've now finished the geometry for the title block. And so really all that is the major horizontal line, the vertical divider lines, and then I've put in the projection symbol, the scale, my name, and the general title of the drawings as a whole, because they're the things that aren't going to change from sheet to sheet. As we go through and we add more sheets, then obviously we're going to need to change those other sections where they're blank. And we can actually do that in the drawing process itself. So we now just select Finish Title Block. So back in our original view here, I just thought I'd show you something that I mentioned before. So let's say, for example, you bring in your original view and you place it, but for some reason it's not the same as this one. You can actually select this, right click, and go to Edit View. And up here you can change the orientation until you get what you need, basically until you get what it looks like here. So I can see if I change the orientation, that's what a bottom view looks like. That's what a top view looks like. But we go back to front because that's what we need to have here. So we can close. Now let's place our additional views. So we go to Projected View. We can just hover over this select. And you can see it automatically gives me a top view. It'll automatically give me a projected view out here, which is pretty good. We can leave it there for now. Then down here, it will automatically give me an end view. Now, if you get into a position where views are slightly overlapping, don't worry, because you can actually adjust this quite easily. So I'm just going to put that there and press Escape. Let that just settle. Now what you can see, and this is actually a really good feature, in AS 1100, all views must be perfectly aligned with each other. And in this case, what happens is if I grab and move my home view or my front view, everything else remains aligned except for the projected view. So that's quite good. Now the other thing too, you can actually change the level of detail. So for example, all you're seeing here are just the outline views. But for example, with this top view here, the seat kind of obscures everything and we don't really get a lot of information off that. So what I can do is right click edit view, then go over here and I can actually change the style of the view. So you can see there that this now shows some detail relating to the internal structure, which gives me useful information. The thing with this is you have to be careful about using it because sometimes it can give too much information that's not really relevant. And a good example is, I'll show you over here, if I do the same over here, that's just starting to get very messy and very confusing, very hard to read. So I'll go back to my original view from the parent. There's a few other settings here as well, which we don't play around with that much. So we'll go close. And then I'm just going to show you very briefly how to dimension. And then also I'll put in the final text in here to finish this drawing off. So fairly simple. Obviously dimensioning, there's actually quite a lot in here, but most of the time we're going to be using the most simple form of dimension. And that's going to be also using the keyboard shortcut D. So D for dimension. And then all I need to do is I want to select some really basic geometry. So for example, the length of the legs could be quite useful. Now when you pull this out, you'll see that it snaps. It'll go out and it'll snap a certain distance out. And that's where that leader line is around 10 millimeters. And for the initial layer of dimensions, and we'll get into layering dimensions later on, that's a good setting to have. Let it snap to the 10 millimeter line. So we've got that dimension there. We might want the width of the seat. And again, you see that it's snapped to the 10 mil, and that means that's also lined up, which again is what you want. You want to have your dimensions all aligned with each other. Sorry, that does bounce around a little bit. Now, on here, this is actually a good dimension to show because you can see that it's giving me 539.2. Now, in the real world, that piece is actually 540 millimeters long. The reason why it's giving 539.2 is because of the curve in it. So when we curve it, we actually shorten it slightly. So, but for the sake of having an accurate dimension on the component prior to the curve being put into it, we want to just modify that dimension there. And you can actually do it. You can override dimensions. So I'm just going to press escape. Then I'm just going to select that and then double click on it again. And I'm just going to change that to 540. Press enter. There it is, it's done. Okay, so maybe a couple more dimensions we could put in here. So D for dimension again. This distance between the shoulders here is an important dimension to remember in the workshop. So that could be quite useful. Now, whereas before I said, we want our leader lines to be 10 millimeters long. In this case, there's always, for every rule, there's an exception. What we want here is we want this number not to be up inside here. We want it to be outside the boundary of the project itself. So unfortunately, it's not going to snap to something that looks similar to this. So we're going to have to do it visually. Also, the leader lines are much longer than we would normally have. So around about there is good. And we can put in the radius lines. And also the other dimension that we might want is the length of this component here. And we'd like that to line up with that. We just have to do it visually. Unfortunately, it doesn't snap. So there is a special dimension for radiuses, but, and I'll just press escape just to sort of show you, but if I just press D for dimension again and land on that curve there, it does still remember, or it knows because that's a curved line, that it's going to automatically go for radius line. So if we click there and then just drag down like that, and then we'll do the top radius. Now, the radius that's important is this one here. Sorry, it's bouncing around. Is this one here, not this one, because that's the top of the cushion of the seat. So we just click on that, go up, and place that dimension. I'm then just going to race ahead to put in the views, and then we'll finish this tutorial. So this general assembly drawing is now finished.